down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Welcome back to the Savvy Radio Show. Oh man, if you're listening to this, that means you're on the next level, man. You're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to be a better person. You're going to succeed in life because you want to learn more and grow. I'm telling you, just these last two podcasts with Chad Missildine has just inspired me. It also has made me truly live what I'm talking about. And, you know, the last podcast was powerful. Am I really doing what I want to be doing? Am I living to my potential? And today we're going to do a quick story on Chad, on how his journey of being an entrepreneur. And, you know, today's episode, we're going to cover about the power of friendships and mentors. And you know, I've harped on this for over the last 5 years. This podcast has been rolling. You need to be a mentor or you need to be a friend as well, and develop those friendships. And developing those friendships could be just a quick text and say, hey, how are you doing? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be as elaborate as we think it needs to be, because you never know when iron sharpens iron, and you need to be there for them. So today's episode, friendships and mentors. What does it truly mean to you and who you are as an individual in the process that you go through? You know, last time we talked about, you know, it's funny when Chad was talking about, I love this entrepreneur journey of pews, but when he started talking about cutting pews and selling them, I'm like, God, is this dude a woodworker? No, that was just a process to find out who he is and where he's going. And also, I think it's important that you never know how you're going to pivot. One day you may be working as a pastor in a church, you might be cutting pews down, or you might even be in an oil field. Or me, working at McDonald's at one time. Yes, I worked at McDonald's, and I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yes, I worked as a sales clerk at a electronics store. Yes, I worked at Sears. Yes, I was a telemarketer on the phone. How does that sound? Did you know that the Savvy Landlord, me, AKA Savvy, has experienced and pivoted in my lifetime? A real estate entrepreneur, bridal website, a DJ in nightclubs. Pivot, move, grow into something who you are comfortable with. And, you know, today for me, it's about being an entrepreneur. That's what it is. I'm glad that, I've had a great run in 20-something years as a real estate investor. And I'm not saying that I'm getting out per se, but I'm moving into a new life. This is Steve VanCauwenbergh 3.0. And let's learn how to pivot. And let's hear Chad's heart and his life on how he found himself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. You got me thinking about Big Macs. Thank you, by the way, with McDonald's. I'm like, geez, did you get free ones? That's what I was thinking about.
I was actually, at one time, I did the flipping of the burgers. Now it's all automated clamshells. They automatically cook. But yes, I remember making an Egg McMuffin on this little ring. You put this ring on the stove. I worked at McDonald's at 14 in New Jersey. I had a work permit. Diet Coke just came out. Chicken nuggets was an invention.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
When I worked at McDonald's, they did not have chicken nuggets.
Yeah. Well,
Isn't that weird?
No, and I didn't even know about KFC. Like, I love hearing your story, and I love hearing how you moved through all those things, right? And that's what it's all about, is evolving as an individual. Yeah. We're not the same person we were 5 years ago. You're listening to this podcast today. You're not the same person as you were a year ago. And,
I'm thinking about Christmas and my children and my mom worked 3 jobs. I remember my mom worked on Christmas at 7-Eleven. I mean, we judge people about their educational level. Oh, your mom was uneducated because she had to take a job at 7-Eleven. That was the stigmatism back then. And I was ashamed. But now at 50 years old, I realize that my mom sacrificed.
Yeah, she did.
For the income, for me, for this spoiled brat. And, my life has forever changed. So I love saying that I worked at McDonald's, and I love saying that I work because it made, like what we talked about last episode about hard work, where we confuse hard work. There's sometimes you really, truly need to do hard work and pick up 1,000-pound pews and cry and get hurt and realize that's not what I want to do, or that's what I'm going to do. I know that I'll never work in fast food again.
Well, it's important to know that it's okay to go down a road and then gain experience from it and then shift directions. I mean, that was part of my story. I'd love to share that with the listeners here, but I mean, I told a silly story about church pews, and then so I'm hanging out. I'm building furniture, and I had saving up for a ring, but my degree was in accounting and finance. So like it was.
Oh, so that's why you have spreadsheets.
That's why I have spreadsheets. Yeah.
Because I'm still trying to figure you out.
So here I am,
woodworker, oil field.
It was 2002, and I thought I wanted to be like a Wall Street guy. That's what my degree was, finance. I added on accounting, and so that's what I was looking for. And I interviewed, with these different companies, and I went in this one interview. This headhunter was getting interviews for me. And I wouldn't know who it was. So you just show up. Have you ever done that before? It's like, it was interesting. I would show up not knowing who it was. So I show up at this building in downtown Fort Worth, and I get to the address, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the tallest building in Fort Worth. And I walk in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to meet with such and such. And do you know where I'm looking for the Bass Towers? And the security guy laughed at me. He was like, yeah, this is the Bass Towers, you idiot. And I'm like, what floor? And I'm like, 14th floor. And it was the top floor, which is, in Fort Worth. So I go up, and it was with the Bass brothers in Fort Worth. And I don't know if you know anything about them, but like they were the guys that rebuilt Fort Worth. They were these billionaires, and they made all their money in oil and gas. And there was these 4 brothers, and they had this hedge fund where they started taking their family's investments and investing in stuff. So for me, that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Opportunity.
Yeah. And I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I thought, man, that's what I wanted. I want to go make as much money as I could, and that'll fix, all my problems. I won't have any problems later in life because I didn't have that early on.
Yeah. Way.
So I was 100% going down that road when I was doing the dumb church pew thing. And I'm out. I'm building these.
Wait, hold on, man. Yeah. We're on the 14th floor. Don't go. What happened?
Okay, so I thought I get to the 3rd round where I'm like meeting with the big dogs.
And so you're applying for a financial position to sell financial services.
No. So what I was going to do is, I was going to be the accountant I was going to book all the trades for all these day traders in this hedge fund. It was actually a dream job. You get to learn about all these guys investing money, and not be the one actually pulling the trigger.
And you could see the growth.
See all the trades, which one lost money, which ones.
Okay, cool.
And then all of a sudden, man, that door closed. I still, to this day, I have no idea.
So you didn't get the job?
No, I didn't get the job. And but I was crushed. And then all that while, I'm meeting with this guy building his barn. His name was Greg Davis. And he was like on the opposite end of the Wall Street. Country dude, big old dually truck, cowboy hat, boots. He had a barn behind his house he let me build in. And he was a land developer. He was a broker, real estate broker, and a builder. And I started driving around with him in his truck, and he was like, man, you could do this, Chad. Like, so he started pouring into me, and he was there for me. I mean, he would have me over for I'd be out there sweating in his barn, building these just silly furniture, and he would invite me in, and I would have dinner with his family, and almost like I was a part of his family, and he just started showing me who I was, and he started speaking truth into me.
Come on.
And he was like, you're a creator, man. You're not made to go punch a clock doing debits and credits. He's like, you're a go-getter. You can make things happen. And I never had anybody told me that before. That's awesome. I didn't know it about myself, but he spoke that truth into me. He ignited
something inside of you.
Yeah. And so he started, he's like, you need to be during that time, the Fed was putting a bunch of money in the economy, and housing was booming, and so I was going down a direction, and then I pivoted and got into home building, and I started calling. I drove around one day and called signs on home builder signs, and after searching for a job in accounting and finance for a year and interviewing 30 different places and having no open doors.
Wow.
I got two offers in one day with home builders, and that's how I kind of.
So what was your position as a foreman?
Yeah, superintendent,
Okay. So this guy, let's dial back with Greg. So Greg, he planted a seed inside of you of your potential as a creative builder. And he saw that because he was in that arena already. He's already built spec houses. He's already been down that road, right?
Yeah.
So he sees your potential, and I love the story that you're allowed to ride with him for free and just serve him in some magnitude.
Yeah.
And so you got the spark, and then but on the left hand, it wasn't working. Your degree, your plan of being multi-rich billionaire on
that
Wall
door
Street,
closed, man.
So then now you're driving around calling other builders. So your mindset here, I'm just guessing, is like, hey, I'm going to learn this, and I'm, right? Or were you going to build? What was going on there when you were driving around calling these builder signs?
I was totally borrowing Greg's belief at that point in my life, and I didn't. He had it, and I kind of like was trying to get it, And
you're 24, 22?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I still didn't have a job at that point. Like I wanted to have a family and all those things, all the things.
No money.
No, I didn't have any money. I mean, I bought a ring and put a down payment on a house.
From some pews.
Yeah, that is not a long-term gig.
I can't wait
selling
to talk
furniture at flea markets.
I wrote her down.
So, there's always saying, Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. And like Greg was a giant for me.
Okay.
And I would even take that a step further and say, we don't just stand on the shoulders of giants, but real giants like Greg, real giants, they don't only show us like in the future, like on their shoulders, but they like put a mirror up and show us who we really are. And that's what he did for me. He showed me who I really was. And he spoke some things to me that I didn't believe in myself. So like, honestly, I owe a huge, and I still talk to Greg and we're good friends still, but he ended up being a real estate broker. I got my license. I started building houses. But that dude, I just think it's important for people to know like that you need to have people like him in your life. And I would be nothing without the investment of other people. And I recognize that yes, it gave me this opportunity to go get into doing a different trade. But, all of us, we need people like that. And you've said some nice things about me on the podcast, and maybe they're stretched a bit, who knows, but I think it's important just for people to know, like, if you're knowing my story, I'm who I am today because of people like Greg Davis. And I wouldn't be here talking to you on this podcast. I wouldn't have gotten to get into building and build a bunch of houses. I mean, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur today if it wasn't for a mentor and a friend like that.
My mind's going crazy about, how you built over 100 and something houses, right? I mean, how many houses have you built?
Yeah, I think probably in the middle, like 150s range, but a lot of those,
all when I started this, I'm just, just slow down here, Chad. Let's just slow down and think about it. I mean, you're this groomed, educated college grad, right? Graduate school, going on a trajectory of the Wall Street white collar suits and trying to dig into that and going to all these interviews for over a year. And then you pivot through someone that was gracious enough to hold your hand and usher you into the most powerful arena. Our whole world is revolved around housing, about mortgages. And then now you learned a lifelong skill that you're using today for your family is pretty remarkable. That I would call that defining moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing, as I think back on that season, and all of us have those seasons where we kind of had an aha moment about our life. But for me, it was about figuring out who I was. And I think that's a continual journey. I don't think that's a one-time event where you're like, oh, you figure out who you are and then it never changes. I think we're always on that journey, but it took somebody slowing down and invest in me to help me understand who I was.
I think you have to be willing and intentional, man. I mean, I don't know what, I had a similar story where I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I called on a phone on an ad to buy a property, and I met this gentleman. And this gentleman I met, to this day, 20-something years later, it's a similar story to yours. I'm forever grateful for him. He allowed me to ride with him, and we would drive by all of his hundreds of houses 25 years ago. And I'm still friends with that dude today. And I think it changed my life forever. I always say it's Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's also intentional. I had to call him and say, hey, man, can I ride with you? And he was like, sure. And I had no idea. I didn't know if he was like gay or something. Like, okay, but I really had no idea who he was. And I mean, he never made a pass at me, but I mean, it's not a typical thing. Hey, buddy, take me under your wing. But he did. And then he never says, I thank him to this day all the time. I am where I am today because of you.
Yeah.
And I think it's incredible that you've done that. And it's interesting that you've pivoted a couple of times since that time. Because when I met you, it was in a different capacity. You were in a whole new industry, and you had this tenure behind you. It's pretty powerful, man. I think it's really cool that you can reinvent yourself. You can be whoever you want to be if you're willing to do it.
Yeah. I think so. And I think sometimes too, like doors. So if you're listening today, maybe you had a door that closed on you, or like you had plan A, and plan A like fizzled, like I had a plan A, right? It was like Wall Street or whatever. Well, that door closed. It was bolted shut. Like those guys weren't talking to me anymore, and I didn't do anything wrong. I think it was a door that God closed in my life. And sometimes I think, for a lot of people, they don't know when it's time to move on and do something different. So some of you might be listening today and you're still stuck in that old dream that door closed, and sometimes you just have to move on. And it might be an old career dream, or I'm not saying kill your dreams. I'm just, maybe it was a time that you got fired from a job, or maybe it was a time somebody was hurtful to you in a relationship, or maybe it was some time that you had something that you wanted and it just didn't turn out the way that you expected, and you're still disappointed or hurt or misguided. And I think for me, it's recognizing those seasons of my life where, like, if I would have stayed on that track of Wall Street, that was not a healthy track for me. It was all rooted in greed. I mean, it was rooted in the wrong motives. I get it. But if you're listening today, just, I don't know what that could be for you, but maybe a door is closed and it's just time to move on, man. It's time to let it go and let that chapter go, and recognize sometimes doors close for a reason. I'm not saying don't pursue your dreams, but maybe just be cognizant of another door could be opening, and maybe it's something that's better for you, or something that you want even more. But you have to know when to kind of go, okay, that season's over, and now I'm going to not look back. I'm not going to live in the past anymore. I'm just going to kind of move forward.
We started the podcast, what does it mean to truly be who you are? And I the word that pops in my head when I say that, it's identity. And I remember, I was in the music industry for 10 years, and my one dream was to go to New York and be in the music industry. Little did I know that I would ever have a 20-year something career in real estate. And I think it's really cool that you don't need to know what's going to happen 30 years from now. You don't need to know what's going to happen tomorrow, but what you need to do is make a decision today. This is what I'm going to do. And how I got into the music industry, I was like, what's my dream? I wanted to be a promoter, and I called a record company, and that's how I made that dream happen. Now, did I know at that time that I would read Rich Dad Poor Dad or meet my mentor at that time and that changed my life forever? No. But it's interesting now, I feel even at 50 years old, I'm in that season again, and I'm looking for what's the next thing for me. What do I really want to do? Yeah. And ultimately, it's entrepreneur. I want to help other entrepreneurs. I want to be an entrepreneur, create things, sustain things, make them successful financially, whatever the case may be, but in an entrepreneur endeavor.
Well, and you've helped me. I mean, I've done some coaching with you, Stephen, but even before that, just, you're on my list of people that have poured into my life and made a difference. I mean, that season I met you, I was trying to make some decisions financially, and you were like, quit worrying about it. Quit worrying about it. Just make the decision and move on. And you helped me move forward. And you've helped so many people do that, whether it's business partners that you have, or people that you coach, or just friends. And so I'm so grateful for that. And none of that could have happened if you didn't have like a clear sense of who you were. And so just because you've had that sense of like, hey man, here's what I want. Here's what my life focus is. That clarity has helped you actually then go out and do it with other people. And that makes me want to, do the same thing. It makes me want to be able to give back and help others too.
It's so crazy that you say it that way. And I appreciate the compliment, but I was so honored that you approached me. And I think this is where we get weird in society, because I knew who you were, the position that you were at that time in your career, and also that your tenure as a real estate / builder. And you coming to me, I was like floored. But it's just interesting how we need to drop our pride. We need to realize, what am I trying to accomplish? At that time, you had a need. You didn't know how to deal with that need. And I've been down that road, and it was easy for me, but it was impactful for you. And I think we just don't know. We run around all day long how impactful we can make other people's lives. Like that guy, Greg. I mean, he probably doesn't know the magnitude of the impact that he's made. And my mentor too, I try to tell him, I can't pay him. I mean, he's 10 times bigger. I mean, this dude's unbelievable. But I think the true appreciation of just, hey, man, my life is better because of you. Yeah. And I think we need to do that more often as well.
Yeah. I think we can give back to and go, hey, man, okay, people have been there for me. I stood on the shoulder of giants. Now, how can I go pay that forward?
Yeah, I love that. Keep saying it again. I'm on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah, I think the quote was, if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulder of giants. And I think his point was just, he is where he is because of the people that have gone before him.
That's right.
And so I remember when Greg poured into me, I always thought, man, I don't know what I want to do with my career, but I want to help people and I want to be the friend and mentor and coach that he's been. And so, fortunately I've had the opportunity now, it's not a brag, but like probably thousands of people I've been able to coach and mentor over the last 20 years. And it's because I had models like Greg, I had models like VanCauwenbergh, I had people that have kind of shown me like, hey, whatever career you're doing, you can be, an encouragement to people, whether it's professionally or as a friend or as a formal coach. I've paid you over the last year to do some coaching with me, and I've probably had 100 times return on the investment. But there's also seasons where you've just been like, you've told me like, Chad, I'm your friend. I'm not going to stop being your friend. What do you need? Yeah. And so there's been times where it's been formal and there's been times where it's been informal, but the point is just that you've been that, and we can all be that. There's all of us have people around us looking to us. We don't know it. They just look at us, but we could be a huge impact on them just to show them, some attention. Somebody asked me the other day, what's the scarcest resource in the world? And I'm like, dude, it's attention. Right now. It's attention. Everyone's so distracted. You give someone your attention for even if it's a short amount of time. And that's like one of the scarcest gifts you can give them.
Dude, that's a bomb you just dropped.
Well, I'm trying to do it at home.
My mind is ballistic. Okay,
I'm trying to do it at home too.
I'm trying to wrap this deal up, and you're bringing up that's the next step. No, the next podcast, I really want to get dialed in on how to be uncomfortable. And, I know that you said that you've impacted people, you've coached a great amount of people. When you were talking, what I was thinking? All the people that you impacted on building those homes, those 150 homes, those people probably profited when they sold them. They got to raise their family in those homes. The impact that you made is just, we won't know until later. But to get there, for you, on the next episode, if you can do your homework or write out some notes, how'd you stop being uncomfortable? Because I haven't built yet because I've been on a lot of projects because I'm uncomfortable. And I think the great episode for next time is, how to get used to being uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable and the situations that you were uncomfortable and how'd you subside those. And so if that's cool with you, Chad, if you're down to come back on the Savvy Radio Show, I'd appreciate that. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls around the world, that's right. What the first thing you need to do is figure out what you want to do and who you're going to be. And then the second thing is go buy assets and tune into next time because we're going to talk about how to be uncomfortable.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter @LandlordBook and always be buying assets.